Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. Welcome to all of you joining us. It's afternoon, I guess, in Eastern time zones. For those of you in Central, Mountain, and Pacific time zones, it's still morning for you folks, but hope you're having a great day. We're here to talk about paid time off in Church Windows Payroll. So let's go ahead and get into pay. Well, first of all, our current version of Church Windows right now is 25.23.1. Hopefully everybody's on that version. If you're not, we would strongly advise being, upgrading to the 25.23.1. Certainly with regards to payroll, that is very important for things like tax documents, of many as you've probably already determined. But certainly for fixes and patches and enhancements and things like that, latest version is always beneficial. We are working on 25.23.2 right now. That'll probably be released here sometime later in February. More updates, fixes, patches, and enhancements for the software. Okay. All right. So let's go into payroll. And all right. So paid time off pay labels are set up. Here we are. Give me a second here, folks. Got a couple monitors set up. And paid time off is set up. Labels are set up under special functions. Payroll. And where are they? Pay label, data setup, excuse me, data setup and pay labels right here. So if we click on pay labels, it brings up all of our regular pay labels. Standard, we see two tabs here. Standard, regular, additional, overtime. Then we have the tab here called paid time off. Okay. And here is where the paid time off labels are set up. I believe we do set these sick time, vacation, and PTO up as part of the installation, automatic installation as part of the software. So when you install and enable payroll, I believe these three pay labels are already pre-constructed for you, okay? Just a reminder that you do not need to set up a different pay label for each employee, okay? You can link the pay labels for each employee to a different or separate expense account, but we don't need a sick time pay label for pastor and a sick time pay label for the administrator and a sick time pay label for, the custodian, etc., associate pastor. These same pay labels, just like our standard pay labels here, regular, additional, and overtime, can all be assigned and used for different employees. Okay, and the same is true for our paid time off labels as well. Okay. However, if you do need additional pay labels for paid time off, then the three that are listed here, you simply click the add label. It opens up enter a label name. You simply click OK, and it adds it to our list. Okay, but most of the time, folks, so I see a question coming in already. It seems appropriate. Can you set up additional pay labels to accommodate different types of earned PTO? Absolutely. Like I said, as you know, if this list of paid time off labels is insufficient or doesn't work for you, absolutely come in here and set up those additional pay labels. Again, simply by clicking add label, enter the pay label name, click OK, and it adds it to our list. Okay, let's go ahead and key one in here. I'm just gonna there, and I click it, and here it is. Okay, once a pay label, folks, has been used, it cannot be deleted. All right, it can only be inactivated. I haven't used my division over here when I've set up, so I can remove that. So if I highlight that and click minus, it'll say deleted, yes. But if I try to delete some of the others, it says PTO label cannot be deleted when it has employees. I believe also when it's been used as part of pay as well. But because it's assigned, it won't let me remove it, okay? If a pay label, whether it's standard or paid time off, is no longer needed and cannot be deleted, you can simply come in here and check it as inactive. But notice it here, it says this paid PTO label has been assigned to one or more employee payees. Are you sure you want to inactivate it? So we're trying our best to ensure that you're not inactivating something that you still might be needing or actively using. Okay. We'll look at more of the where these are assigned here in employees records momentarily. Okay. Typically, I'm going to be more likely to inactivate something rather than delete it, even if it would be permissible, because I don't know if I might need it again in future. Inactivating it will ensure that it doesn't show up to be able to select when you're assigning it to employees, but it still leaves it there in the background, hidden should you need to come back to it. Okay. When PT pay labels are added, they can be set up and assigned to any employee. Okay. I know this kind of seems obvious, but I just want to remind folks is paid time off is only an option for employees only, not for contractors. Okay. You can reorder these here, and if I need to like put PTO up higher in the list, I can actually do that. So we notice we highlight that, click the up arrow there, it puts PTO up at the top. Okay, and then I simply click OK when I'm done with those. Takes us back to our main payroll landing page. Okay. So when we've now got those pay labels set up for our paid time off, we now are going to go in and assign that or use those with our employees. So if we go to employees contractors now, sorry folks, takes a second. Okay. So if I go here, notice here, I'm going to one of my contractors first because I just want to confirm for you, as we stated before, that when I go to Joe Green Thumb, he's my landscaper, grounds maintenance, keeper. When I go to pay rates, PTO is not an option here. It's not an option anywhere for a contractor. Okay. When I am now here, I'm under Steve Jones. When I'm now on a regular employee, I can go to pay rates and hours. And then we notice we've got our tab down the left side here called standard rates and hours per pay period. And just to the right of that, a tab called paid time off. When we click on that, here it shows Steve has one assigned, but it's not set up properly. We're going to get rid of that. Notice now there's no pay label for him. Thought I had cleared that out, folks, earlier. I had not. I apologize. So if an employee has nothing assigned here, it will show as it appears here with absolutely nothing. So if I save that and I go back to a different employee like Jimmy, we notice here on paid time off, he has vacation set up for 23, but he had PTO for set up for 2024. Okay, it shows the date range that is set up for and assigned for employees. So when we're setting up one new, and these PTO periods can be set up with specific time periods in mind, and the software will allow you to copy that forward, or honestly, it'll systematically do it if I recall correctly. And it'll warn you when it comes to that time of year. So here we are on Steve. Again, he is, let's see, we're going to go to pay rates and hours, paid time off, nothing here. If I click in the first available time label just below that, here are all of my paid time off labels that I saw in the list, and I can choose that accordingly. Okay. PTO, paid time off, acronym for paid time off, is more and more popular than ever before. Of course, it's typically considered time that an employee can use for anything. Doesn't have to be considered sick time or vacation. If your church or if you're an employer who chooses to be able to separate vacation and sick time, you may certainly do that. You may assign multiple paid time off labels to an employee, just like you can regular pay labels, okay? But for the purposes of our webinar, since we're about halfway through our time here, I'm going to just choose PTO, because the next window that's going to come up is going to really take up the rest of our time here in terms of how that works. So when we click on the respective time label, notice now it now opens up the actual control window that allows us to set up the specific parameters for how paid time off is assigned or given or assessed on a particular employee. Okay, this is where things get to be kind of a little bit tricky, and you need to pay attention, but you need to kind of play with it and test it. Okay, so first thing is I like to point out before we do this, we've got it can be earned in two different ways or assigned in two different ways. It can be either based on the time that an employee works, okay, or it can be assessed or assigned based on a particular pay period, or it can just be given to them at the outset of the year, okay, to start the year essentially, okay. Time worked and per pay period is only really important when we're looking at this other further one down called time will accumulate, okay. If there is one called there's a set amount, and we're going to come back to this in more detail in a moment, that's what this is. Time worked and per pay period is only really relevant when paid time off or sick time or vacation time is earned based on an employee's on their work, essentially, okay? Employee earns X number of days or hours, percent of days or hours with each paycheck that they're paid, okay? Something that I've worked with folks a lot through support on is if basically the church says, okay, we're going to give an employee 2 weeks of vacation time at the start of the year automatically, then the time worked or pay period is essentially irrelevant, okay? The other thing that really we have to be aware of, and it even gets more complex than that, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well, momentarily. In what unit will the time be measured? So is their vacation or PTO or sick time being assessed or earned, accumulated, or paid in hours or days? Okay. It's really important to understand how this stuff works. Okay. Hang on, I'm looking through my notes here on this. Basically, what we can't do is we say, okay, that the time's going to be measured in hours, and then say that the employee is going to be hours or the time is going to be given in days. Okay, it just doesn't work that way. So notice here for Steve, if I said what unit will the time be measured, if I choose hours, it says time will accumulate hours given. I can't change that to days given. If I want that to be days, then I've got to choose the time measured will be days. And notice it now says days given. All right. So that unit of measure at the top becomes really vitally important towards how in terms of how you set up the rest of how that paid time off is given or assessed or accumulated for each employee. Okay. Now this is customized to him. Okay. I can set up a different employee where that time is measured in hours. All right. And again, depending on what you select here determines what that value is set below. Okay. So a lot of times I might suggest that you look at what the actual employee's pay schedule type is. So in this case, Steve is considered a salaried employee. So it may be more useful for us to be able to award his or give his PTO if he's actually accumulating it in days rather than hours. Okay, just a thought. Okay, because again, and this again kind of blows people's minds sometimes when I talk about it, is that you have to keep in mind that a salaried employee still can be calculated for a daily value that they're going to be awarded, or their daily rate for their pay, or an hourly rate for their pay. Okay. And where that ties into here, and this is, folks go, well, days, hours, that's contingent on a particular location that we've got here. So what we're going to do is we're going to clear that out. We're going to save that. And right here, Church Windows, when we go up to Special Functions here, Settings in the upper left-hand corner, we notice here, General, working hours per week, working days per week. This is a set value. This is a fairly standard figure, right? We consider a working week at 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 40 hours, or 5-day work week. Okay, that's how Church Windows assesses this, is a work week is based on 40 hours for an hourly employee, 5-day week for a salaried employee. Okay. While these figures can be changed, there typically isn't going to be much need to change those. Okay. But I'm just saying that's what the software uses as the value for hours per week or days per week, okay, is where that's set. If you need to, you may certainly come in there and change it, but it would be unlikely that you would probably need to do that, okay? So we're going to go back to Steve's. We're going to go back to paid time off. We're going to now choose that. We're going to bring that up. He's a salaried employee. The easiest way to assign it, folks, is if I choose, say, days for him, okay, and he doesn't earn it, and if I go set amount, here's where we say, here's how much he can be, here's how many days he'll get for 2024, okay? So if I go, okay, he's going to get 2 weeks, that means he gets 10 days of PTO for 2024. I do get pay rate from. Typically, folks, this is going to be regular, okay? Paid time off is not considered overtime or additional, so it's generally going to probably be regular. Also, what is the pay period? What is the value valid from? So if it's going to be for, say, 2024, I'm going to say this is set for now, through 12/31/2024. And when we're going down here to where it says expense, employee expense, it's talking about the expense account that the employees, it's going to charge on our treasurer's report for that paid time off. So if Steve is, say, our associate minister, I don't think he is, I think he's somebody else, supply pastor, say, and if he's considered a lay person, what expense account represents the actual church's or employer's share of Social Security and Medicare. And I believe we do have an expense account down here for church portion of Medicare and FICA Medicare. If they're a minister, of course, that employer expense account is not in play, okay? But this is the easiest way to do this, okay? It becomes a little more complicated when time is accumulated, okay? So I'm going to go back to that because we've only got a couple minutes left, folks. I'm sorry. But days given, okay? Many times accumulated, measured, earned is more suitable for hourly employees. So again, your type of employee, whether they're salaried or hourly, really can impact the decisions about how this is done, okay? But because he's salaried, we're going to go ahead and leave it as days. If we give him days to start the year, maybe days that were carried over, or time that was carried over from the end of the prior year, we go, okay, as of January 1, he gets 3 days that was carried over from last year. And now for every number of days worked, let's say 20 days worked, he gets 1 day accumulated. Okay, notice that it says for every day worked, 1 day is accumulated. So for every number of days he works, he gets 1 day of vacation time or paid time off, okay? You can also have the pay, based on time worked, you can do it per pay period, okay? We're going to leave it as time worked because I want to show you something about this. We're right at 20 minutes after the hour, folks. So I'm going to go a couple minutes long probably because of this. When I click OK through this, I now have to tab off that and I have to click Save in the upper right, okay? Because what I want to show you is when we go here now and we go to calculate, and you folks can test this, all right? I'm just going to go through. I'm going to show you how you can run a mock payroll to test what an employee what they're earning. Okay, so let's say if we're going to do the pay period starts for Steve February 1st through, say, February 15th. And again, click Next. We're going to do specific. We're going to do uncheck all, and we're going to do Steve Jones. Click Next. Here's his salaried rate, okay? Any other allowances and housing. He is a minister. And here's other deductions he has. And then when we go to Next and Browse Payments, okay, let me bring over my screen over here. And folks, you can click right here to the Paid Time Off tab, and there it shows us exactly how much units or time he's going to be accumulated on this particular pay period. Shows you units accumulated, this pay, units available, okay? And so it shows us how much with this pay he'll have available after this in paid days and any vacation that he's used this pay, which there hasn't been any. You go, oh, I don't like that. You can just cancel out of this, cancel it, cancel again, and then go back into their pay record and continue to explore it and only pay it to them when that value is correct. Okay? So folks, you've got to dive in and play with these in terms of the setup of where their, what their paid time off actually is. So if I go, oh, well, this isn't right for Steve, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to click the little pencil icon, brings me right back to where I left off. Okay. So this, until you begin to pay things like this, and this can still be edited or changed. Okay. But you want to play with this and explore it and continue to check that as you are going through and exploring that. Folks, if there's something about this that you need help with or assistance with, please reach out to us and call us about it. All right. But you can't be afraid of diving in here and seeing if this is going to work. Because again, you can say, okay, if Steve gets that, 1 day per pay period, it's every time I pay him, he's going to get a day of pay or a day of paid time off. All right. So if I now were to click OK through that and save it, it's now then going to give him 1 day, whether, whatever my pay period is, whether it's semi-weekly or bi-monthly. And again, folks, one of the things that we really just didn't have really time to go over here is this pay period impacts everything. So again, the amount of time that an hourly employee that's set up as bi-weekly gets versus someone that is semi-monthly is different. Okay. And so again, it's just important to look at the pay period that the employee has in comparison to whatever the actual value is you're assigning to them under their paid time off with regards to that. Okay. I'm so sorry. I've gone a little bit long here with regards to this. I apologize for that. Looks like we've got a number of questions, but I'm going to leave the topic there for now.